the Great British Manufacturing Podcast, brought to you by MTD, MFG and Jefferson.
Hello and welcome to the Great British Manufacturing Podcast. On this week's podcast, we discuss the positive British manufacturing news in the last 7 days, and we speak with this week's special guest, who this week is Willian Santos, International Sales Manager at ABI Electronics. But before that, just a brief word about Factory Now. The Factory Now initiative has been launched to help British manufacturing sector boost sales, collaborate and reshore. New members are joining all the time. This week we'd like to welcome the Optimise Group, which offers a complete suite of cost reduction services and carbon neutral strategies. For more details on members can be found at mtdmfg.com/Factory Now. But now I'm joined with Stuart Whitehead, and let's get on with the news. Stuart, BAE Systems, the revamping its site in Kent.
Absolutely. The British engineering and defence giant is set to invest tens of millions of pounds upgrading the site in Kent after securing planning permission. The Marconi Way plant will now undergo a phased redevelopment, which will include the construction of a new factory. For those who don't know, BAE Systems was founded in the Kent town in 1999 following the merger of Marconi and British Aerospace. The site is home to the UK-based electronic systems business, BAE's electronic systems business, and produces a wide range of advanced technologies for the commercial and military aviation markets, including flight and engine controls, night vision systems, surveillance and reconnaissance sensors, and communications equipment. So following the news from Brompton, setting up a new factory in Kent, more good news for the county.
Indeed, yeah, and more good news to follow. Sheffield Forgemasters and British Steel are investing in the latest next generation of engineers.
Yeah, there's been a spate of these announcements. So Sheffield Forgemasters had launched a recruitment drive for apprentices with opportunities available across a wide range of disciplines, including steelmaking, engineering and metallurgy. Founded in 1805, the historic manufacturer is set to invest £400 million upgrading its Yorkshire site, and that's after being acquired by the MOD last July. British Steel is recruiting 40 apprentices. The trainees will work in Scunthorpe and its Teesside plants. Engineering applicants will be enrolled on a full 3-year training programme, and details on how to apply are on the firm's respective websites. So any young people listening, please have a look.
And there's also an update on the Rolls-Royce mini nuclear reactor project as well.
Yeah, and including some breaking news from the last few hours as well, Joe. So Rolls-Royce is set to start building parts for its small modular reactor programme in anticipation of receiving approval from the UK government by 2024. The SMR programme is expected to generate £52 billion of economic benefit and create 40,000 British jobs in time. And the great thing is 80% of the components will be made in the UK. And in the last few hours, as I say, a bit of breaking news, Rolls-Royce has just announced plans to create 400 jobs in Derby and Warrington to support the programme. So great start to the initiative.
Just fantastic news, isn't it? JLR, they've launched a recruitment drive as well at its engine plant.
Yeah, not too much detail on this, but JLR, which is creating 100 new jobs at its engine manufacturing centre near Wolverhampton. Britain's biggest car maker currently employs almost 1,200 people at the £1 billion site. So I believe that these are predominantly temporary roles, or temporary to permanent type positions. But as I say, we should have more details possibly by the next podcast.
Yeah, good news for the automotive sector. And there's new factories set to be built in Sheffield and Somerset.
Yeah, ITM Power, who we've had the pleasure of interviewing on the podcast before, they've submitted plans to build a new £70 million electrolyser production facility in Sheffield, and this is part of a wider £250 million expansion programme. The hydrogen specialist second factory in the city is expected to create 500 jobs. And Numatic International, best known for its Henry and Hetty vacuum cleaners, they've submitted plans to build a new £30 million factory in Shard in Somerset. The British manufacturer recently acquired a 7-acre site adjacent to its headquarters for the new production facility. So very good news for Somerset.
So Stuart, let's take a brief pause on this week's positive UK manufacturing news and introduce this week's guest, who is Willian Santos, International Sales Manager at ABI Electronics. Willian, welcome back to the podcast.
Hello, Joe and Stuart. I hope you're well. Thanks for inviting me back on the show. It's great to be here.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for joining us. For those that didn't listen to the podcast probably 6 or 8 months ago now with you on, can you give us your career to date, your current role and your responsibilities, please?
Sure. So I am the head of sales and marketing here at ABI Electronics. I've been with the company for the last 15 years. So, and ABI, for those who don't know us yet, ABI, we design and manufacture systems which are used in the maintenance and repair of critical electronic systems. Technologies used in aerospace, defense, manufacturing, energy generation, and so on.
That's fantastic. And how about the size and the heritage of the business?
Yeah. So ABI, we started in 1983. So we're turning 40 next year. So we're not exactly a startup tech company. However, our beginning was very much like a startup that you would see in TV shows like Dragon's Den. The company started with a man with an idea, and his idea was basically to design the world's first low-cost IC tester for engineers and technicians to be capable of testing semiconductors, chips mostly, out of circuit initially. So he went on a journey. He was a design engineer, and he went on a journey designing this system that was eventually introduced to RS components and went into their catalog, and Farnell's catalog became a massive hit. Back in the 80s, it was very difficult if you were a technician or engineer, it was very difficult to find tools like that to test components unless you were basically in a semiconductor manufacturing environment. So he developed this system, and that's how the company started. And we've always been very passionate about keeping design and manufacturing here in the UK. And in the mid-90s, through our relationship with the British military, ABI started to develop a range of solutions, a range of technologies that would allow technicians and engineers not just to test components individually, but test the complete assembly and test those components mounted on the board as well. So ABI would design and manufacture all the systems here, and they are exported all over the world.
What a wonderful UK success story. Do you have any case studies to help illustrate what ABI does and any associated benefits?
Sure. Those who follow us on Twitter, or those who follow me on LinkedIn, they're probably familiar with loads of case studies that we post on a regular basis on social media, which are success stories that our customers develop themselves through the use of our technology. So we're passionate about, sharing those positive news. And there's one particular case that happened this week. It's happening right now in Mexico, and I think it might be relevant to some of the podcast listeners. Refers to this car parts manufacturer. It's a company called Racini. They make over 14 million brake discs per year. They're in Mexico. They are GM's official supplier for all their light vehicles, all the way through to trucks and lorries and so on. And they invested in our systems to test and repair in-house the electronic circuit boards, which are used in over 250 Fanuc and Siemens robotics CNC machinery. So they under the leadership of a visionary, a man with a vision there, a fantastic electronic manager called Vicente Martinez. He created this group. He set up this group of technicians, and they invested in our systems, and they are now repairing over 600 circuit boards per year. Circuit boards that are, found in servo controllers, in frequency inverters, and so on. So from the robotics side of things, as well as the CNC machinery. And if you consider the average cost of a circuit board, it's about £3,000 roughly, yeah. And some of the less expensive circuit boards before the pandemic, obviously, they would potentially sell for maybe £1,000. Now they are 3 times the price. So I reckon this organization is saving, this group of technicians, I like to call them on social media repair heroes. They are saving their organization about £1.8 million per year. Okay, and that's obviously, it's not just great for the bottom line, but it's great for the environment as well. Increases, machine uptime, increases obviously their independence from external suppliers. And this company, during the pandemic, the beginning of the pandemic, they, just like most of the manufacturing or a lot of the manufacturing companies here in the UK, they got repurposed by the government and obviously answered to the call to help and develop ventilators during the beginning of the pandemic there in Mexico. And a local company was making the electronics, and then Rossini would build the ventilators. But once they were building the ventilators, the circuit boards were not working. And they just, the manufacturer couldn't find out what was going on, what was the issue. So they had a board master there from ABI to troubleshoot that circuit board, and they realized they found out exactly what was going on, and they send that information back to the circuit board manufacturer, and they managed to correct an issue which was happening during the production process. It was related to soldering, a soldering profile or something that was creating a short, and they managed to fix that, and they managed to get that problem resolved as well. So that's just one great, case. It's an information that's come through to me this week, because we have our technical manager there visiting Mexico at the moment, and they are training, and he's actually training the technicians there at Rossini. But ABI, we're a cross-sector company, so we have many different case studies from across the business spectrum. I think one other case could be potentially GE Renewable, a company that obviously is known for the wind turbines, a big wind turbine manufacturer, but also a company that operates many wind farms around the world. And up until 3-4 years ago, they were not repairing none of the circuit boards, found the inverters and all the technology that goes into the wind turbine. But they found us initially in Brazil. 4 years later, we have worked with GE to foment the creation of 7 repair labs across the world, where they are, repairing those circuit boards. They have saved over $4 million in the process. So again, it's a great news for the environment as well, because not only they are reducing the costs, reducing downtime, but they are obviously reducing the amount of circuit boards that are being discarded.
Your personal account on LinkedIn, your ABI Electronics Twitter and LinkedIn account, synonymous with broadcasting, promoting positive news. Invariably, it's an export win. Would you mind just giving us an overview of your export strategy? Because wherever it is, it's obviously working. Maybe some notable achievements. I know, time and time again, you've been nominated and awarded Northern Powerhouse Export Champion status. So, and would you mind also elaborating on that and giving possibly some advice for other manufacturers maybe looking to export for the first time, or certainly export beyond the EU for the first time? Mm-hmm.
Yes, well, as I was mentioning at the beginning, with regards to how the company started, so even though we are a local company, we are a multicultural organization as well. So for those who are wondering where the accent in the name comes from, it's actually from Brazil. So that's where I come from originally. So I used to work for ABI as distributor in Brazil, until 2007 when I moved to the UK, and I think this has been always part of who we are as a business. We've always been a very outward-looking organization. So not only we're not a company that we're just focused on the UK market, and particularly or perhaps the European market. So ABI since 1985 we've been exporting to places like India and Malaysia. We got Latin America in 1991. So a lot of these sectors that are now becoming more talked about on social media by the government, by business, and so on. We have known these markets for a long time, and we have developed, long-term strategies. We have showed commitment to companies in these markets by developing strong relationships with local partners, companies that can not just deliver the goods, but they can also deliver training, certification, and support our customers there. And many of our international partners have been with us for many years. So I think the main message here is that yes, you can export. There's a great market out there. There's a massive demand for British products. I like to say that British technology is extremely well respected on at global scale. And if you have a good product, if you have a good message, a good story, I think you have everything that it takes for you to succeed in that scenario. So it's about developing local relationships, having a long-term vision. I think you mentioned about ABI being export champion. We've been working with DIT, the Department for International Trade, for a number of years. We have just now been appointed for the 5th year in a row as an export champion. And DIT can definitely help those organizations that are perhaps looking into exporting for the first time, or not, or only used to export into the European Union and looking to export, to further afield.
No, good sound advice. And we're going to talk about the Repair Don't Waste site shortly. But before we do, electronic waste, would you mind just giving our listeners an overview and also a sense of the scale of the problem, both domestically and globally?
Mm-hmm. Well, electronics waste, is a tragedy. It's a big issue that we are facing at the moment. The world is facing at the moment. In general terms, the world is producing about 60 million tons of e-waste every year, and a lot of that comes from manufacturing, comes from industrial electronics. Okay, so not just consumer electronics, your appliances, your tablets and smartphones, but a lot of resources, natural resources, go into producing circuit boards, which are used in robotics, in automation, in avionics, and so on. And if they are not repaired when they break down, and they will break down because components get tired and they fail, all that natural resource and all those emissions that got produced during the manufacturing of that circuit board will, inevitably end up in landfills, and a new cycle starts. More resources will have to be carved out of, nature, let's say, through mining and everything, to turn into semiconductors, to turn into eventually circuit boards. And I think that, we need to change that. So ABI, we have been working, with our customers, developing these partnerships globally to break that cycle, where if something breaks down, well, let's look into it. Let's develop the capabilities to test, to repair, rather than replace. Not just thinking about, the money, but also thinking about how we can increase, product reliability by understanding what is going on, what is failing after maybe 2-3 years. So it's a massive issue. I think it's a problem that has been made worse by the lack of education. So I'm a big advocate of repair being, taught as a principle from early education, all the way through to college and universities. So and we need to bring that back. We saw that during the pandemic. And everything that is happening around the world today. If you don't have the ability to repair, if you don't have the ability to take matters, in your own hands when it comes to the maintenance and the operation of critical assets, then you can be in big trouble.
No, absolutely, and thanks for that great insight. Unlike most people, though, you're not just talking about it; you've actually done something about it. The launch of the repair.don'twaste.com site. Would you mind just giving us a background to it, aims and aspirations, benefits to businesses, and the kind of content that people can find on the site, please, William?
Sure. So Repair Don't Waste started as a hashtag back in 2015. So we used to obviously post about our technology, the good news that our technology was creating, the case studies that our technology was creating, and obviously we thought that was important to help people filter through all the different posts by using a hashtag. So we created Repair Don't Waste, hashtag Repair Don't Waste. After that, we noticed that a lot of people identified, a lot of business leaders identified with the message. They would come to us and say, well, I love your hashtag. So we created a kind of a community sense around the Repair Don't Waste message. And that community turned into a movement, because we started seeing people on social media talking about it and really supporting the message. In October last year, I was invited by Interesting Engineering, a massive website with hundreds of millions of followers, to write an article about Repair Don't Waste, and it was a fantastic success. Thousands and thousands of people went through that article and finally realized that yes, there is an alternative to just replacing circuit boards when they become faulty. Be that circuit board from a medical equipment, or from a robotic system, or from an airplane, and so on. So, I think in January, we spoke here internally about maybe creating a place for the movement to live. So we designed the repairdontwaste.com website, where people can come and learn about the movement, can learn about the technology, the training, the standards available for anyone who wants to create that in-house maintenance and repair facility like that manager in Mexico, Vicente, did at Racine. So we want a manager perhaps, or an engineer who wants to create a group of technicians who would be able to repair and look after the assets in-house. They can come to repairdontwaste.com and they'll be able to learn about the tools, the training available, the standards, and case studies as well, to help them put a business case together.
So, Willian, you guys are great on social media. I liked a little bit, you've been egging on Elon Musk of late with the news about Twitter, which is fantastic to see. But can you tell us about your use of social media, any strategies you may have, the content, or just general advice for SMEs here in the UK?
Yes, well, we embarked on this journey of using social media in 2014, and I took on the role here of becoming the content creator and the engagement promoter here at ABI as well. Everything that you see us doing on social media, we try to keep it very personal, keep it very real as well, and I think that is what's potentially lacking in the industry. So we have done so many things. We have created a video series called ABI Labs, which was something unheard of in our industry. Sometimes marketing, especially in manufacturing, is a bit boring, and I think is a bit lacking in terms of creativity. So we try to think out of the box and look for inspiration elsewhere in other industries to bring into manufacturing, and it's been a great success. So I definitely recommend people to connect with me on LinkedIn, and if you work in marketing, if you work in manufacturing, promotion perhaps, feel free to follow us and see if you can draw some inspiration from the work that we do.
Yeah, that's sound advice indeed. But before we let you go, ABI Electronics, what's going on? What's your aspirations for this year, next year, and beyond, I guess?
There's so much going on here, Joe. I don't really know how to start, where to start. I think we're super excited about the year we're having. Our financial year ends on the 30th of June. Our sales are up by 45%. We have grown, obviously, the number of people working here in the UK. So we have a number of people now undergoing training. So I'm overseeing all of that. I mentioned about ABI being appointed this month as for the 5th year in a row as a DIT export champion. Next week, I'll be speaking at a DIT networking event in Huddersfield, which is where I live. So if you are in Huddersfield, would like to learn more about our story, you're more than welcome to tag along. Just go to the DIT website to find out a bit more. There is trade mission to Rio de Janeiro in Brazil next month. And again, it is as a net zero trade mission aimed at the power and energy generation sector there. And I'm happy to tell you here on your show that we're going to be creating a new promotion called Fix Me Aboard Master. I won't be able to give you too many details now, but we're going to be giving an SME from anywhere in the world the ability to wing Aboard Master, our flagship product, and have that system in their lab to obviously increase that company's ability to repair rather than replace, create wealth, create job opportunities. And so watch this space, follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter. You're going to be hearing in the coming weeks about the Fix Me Aboard Master competition. It's going to be great.
Exciting times ahead. You're going to be a busy boy, William, by the sounds of it. But thank you so much for joining us. It's been an education, as always.
Thank you. No, thanks, Joe, and thanks, Stuart, for and everyone in the audience for listening to this week's show. And I'm a big supporter, a big fan of the work that you guys do. And it's great. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Right there, Stuart. A fascinating interview.
No, absolutely. Always incredibly good value, Willian. Absolutely love the Repair Don't Waste initiative as well. So wishing Willian and the team at ABI every success with that.
For sure. And if you like what you hear and you want to join us on the podcast, please do drop us an email at podcast@mtdmfg.com. We'd love to have you on. And we don't always get time to cover the news in the podcast. So go to the website, mtdmfg.com, or download the app. But Stuart, now on with the news. Vauxhall, they're celebrating a major milestone.
Yeah, bittersweet, really. The final British-built Astras rolled off Vauxhall's Ellesmere port assembly line, and this is ahead of the Cheshire factory's £100 million conversion into Stellantis' first electric vehicle-only production site, securing the plant's future and more than 1,000 jobs. The factory, celebrating its Diamond Jubilee this year after opening in 1962, will be transformed over the coming month to begin manufacturing solely battery electric models from next year.
There's a couple of updates concerning British drinks giant Diageo as well.
Yeah, Arda Metal Packaging is supplied to Coca-Cola and Diageo. They've submitted plans for a new £150 million beverage can manufacturing plant. The Newton Abbey facility, which will be one of Northern Ireland's largest ever industrial investments, is expected to create 200 jobs. And Diageo have also announced plans to invest just over £40 million, expanding capacity at its packaging facilities in Runcorn and Belfast. And this is to meet the increasing global demand for Guinness Draught and Guinness Zero.
And also, his new contract has been awarded to the UK's fleet of Hawk aircraft as well.
Yeah, huge contracts, Joe. BAE Systems has been awarded a £590 million contract to provide long-term support for the RAF's Hawk fleet, including the iconic Red Arrows displayed team, and this will secure hundreds of British engineering jobs. And as part of the same announcement, Rolls-Royce has been awarded a £105 million contract to provide support for the Arda engine, which powers a fleet of Hawk jets.
So we've had cars, we've had aeroplanes, we've had all sorts on this week's podcast. We've now got motorbikes. What's happened at Norton?
Yeah, Norton's parent company, TVS Motor, they've announced plans to invest £100 million in the historic British marque. The investment, which is expected to create 300 jobs, includes a recently opened factory in Solihull, which we obviously covered, electrification, and the imminent launch of the re-engineered V4 SV and Commando. And this is part of the wider £1 billion plus range of investments announced by British and Indian businesses, which is set to create almost 11,000 jobs across the UK.
And Hero, they're expanding in the UK as well.
Yeah, the Indian-owned, we've gone from motorbikes to bicycles or e-bikes. Indian-owned bicycle manufacturer Hero is set to install a new e-cycle assembly line at its Stratford Park site. And this is part of the wider £150 million group-wide investment. Once operational, the great thing is, once operational, several international brands currently manufactured in India will actually be built locally in Manchester.
Good news, good news. Never far from news, Aston Martin have unveiled its Racing Green Sustainability Programme. What's this one all about?
Yeah, the luxury car makers announced a new strategy to accelerate its move towards reaching net zero emissions across its entire supply chain by 2039. Named Racing Green, as you say, is targeting net zero emissions for its manufacturing facilities by the end of this decade. As an example of the investment, 14,000 solar panels will be installed at the British Mark Cent Athens plant. Water consumption will be vastly reduced. Plastic waste eliminated company-wide as part of this program. So sure we'll be revisiting that story.
Yeah, we got some green credentials on this week's show, haven't we, with Willian as well. But a Sheffield Forgemasters already had a mention, but continued investment programme at the Sheffield-based facility.
Yeah, we have mentioned them, as you say, but this story got so much traction on social media. They've acquired the UK's largest forging press in this part of the £400 million investment we talked about earlier. The press, which operates at 13,000 tonnes of pressure, has been shipped from Japan to King George Dock in Hull, and that's ahead of its installation in a brand new facility at the manufacturer's Yorkshire site. So great to see the resurgence of Sheffield Forgemasters, and a great way to end the podcast.
Indeed, I've been there a few times. It's been a while since I have been, so maybe I'll reach out and I'd like to see that in situ. It's going to be a bit of a behemoth, I think. But Stuart, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast this week. Big thank you to our guest, Willian Santos. But as always, the biggest thank you goes to you at home for listening. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Great British Manufacturing Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and a review. You can find us on Twitter using @MTDMFG and @Jefferson_MFG.